listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you and welcome to The Briefing. She's been pitched as Hollywood's next big thing, and while she doesn't eat or sleep, she's promised to make you laugh and cry just like the greats.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of actresses who have been input into the LLM to train her, and that is theft from every single one of those.
That deep dive into the AI-generated Tilly Norwood, why it's got Amy Poehler and Emily Blunt fired up, and what Australian actors are calling on the government to do in response is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Chris Spyrou. It's Tuesday the 14th of October.
Hey Tara, and to you listening. We're starting in the Middle East, where Donald Trump has this morning signed the Gaza ceasefire deal at a peace summit in Egypt alongside more than 20 of the world's leaders, including UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, French President Emmanuel Macron and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East.
The signing comes just hours after the US president was in Israel, touching down yesterday afternoon as the last of the remaining 20 living Israeli hostages were being returned to the country.
Before jetting off to Egypt for the peace summit, Trump addressed the Israeli parliament where he got somewhat of a hero's welcome, receiving a 2-minute standing ovation as he arrived. His more than hour-long speech was only momentarily disrupted by 2 left-wing Israeli lawmakers who heckled him, calling for Palestinian recognition before being quickly removed from the chamber.
That was very efficient.
And that was very much the vibe of his address, Tara. It was very unlike what we saw at the UN last month, where the room, wasn't having a bar of him. This room was very receptive to the US president in what felt almost like a MAGA-style rally.
The story of fierce Israeli resolve and triumph since October 7th should be proof to the entire world that those who seek to destroy this nation are doomed to bitter failure. The state of Israel is strong and it will live and thrive forever.
Now, he also called for Benjamin Netanyahu to be pardoned, not for being an accused war criminal, but for the domestic charges of fraud and bribery he's facing, while also calling on Palestinians in Gaza to turn away from what he described as the path of terror and violence.
And the total focus of Gazans must be on restoring the fundamentals of stability, safety, dignity, and economic development so they can finally have the better life that their children really do deserve after all these decades of horror. I intend to be a partner in this effort. Everybody wants to be on it. It's called the Board of Peace, okay? How about that? Is that a beautiful name? Like a Board of Peace.
Meantime, we have since received more updates as well on the nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners that were freed under this deal, with scenes of celebration in the West Bank and parts of the Strip as busloads of them have started returning home. This morning, it's also been confirmed that the bodies of 4 dead Israeli hostages still in Gaza have been handed over. We're still waiting to hear about the remaining 24 that are still there.
Yeah, and look, there is a hopeful tone to all of this, despite the way that Trump speaks and the way that he tries to rally a crowd. Like, he is being very hopeful about it. He's calling this the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. We are seeing Palestinians returning to their homes. We're seeing truckloads of aid flowing into the region. But this is just the beginning and one aspect of a 20-point plan. We don't have a schedule yet as to when all the other things on Trump's peace plan are going to start to unfold. So we don't even have guarantees that Hamas will disarm, which is a central part of the plan. Meantime, all these commentaries coming from Trump where he's speaking to world leaders and he's speaking to the Israeli parliament, but we have legitimate international bodies saying that what Israel has been actively committing in the region is a genocide. So yes, today is historic. Whether it leads to a permanent end to fighting and peace remains something to be seen, but it's very interesting to take stock of the language that's being used today.
Back home now, where the Australian Federal Police has issued a rare statement confirming it's investigating whether or not Lydia Thorpe broke any laws after comments she made at a pro-Palestinian rally in Melbourne over the weekend. Now, we did play those for you yesterday, but here is a refresher for anyone who might have missed it.
So we stand with you every day, and if I have to burn down Parliament House to make a point, I am not there to make friends. I'm there to get justice for our people.
Now, the independent senator received widespread condemnation for the comments and said in a statement she did not mean the words literally, calling them a, quote, figure of speech and metaphor for the pain in our communities.
Yeah, she also called out what she described as the mock outrage that followed, saying while people are dying and starving in Gaza, politicians and media are once again clutching their pearls and chasing a scandal instead of focusing on what really matters now. An AFP spokesperson confirmed its new national security investigations team set up to tackle the grey area between extremism, political violence and foreign interference is looking into the comments. And while they won't be giving running commentary, they say the matter's being taken seriously and will be handled promptly.
One Australian state's become the country's car theft capital, with a vehicle reported stolen to insurers every 44 minutes. According to the Insurance Council, that's how regularly it's receiving calls about cars being stolen from people in Victoria, with related claims reaching a record amount, jumping 59%, roughly $220 million worth.
I don't think it's the gold medal Victoria wants.
Now, that was the Insurance Council CEO, Andrew Hall, who actually told the ABC that this is a growing problem that really needs to be stamped out before Australia catches up with its overseas counterparts where such crimes are prolific.
We're seeing cars not just get stolen, but they disappear altogether, which means that they're going probably overseas and being sold in markets like the Middle East.
According to official crime stats in Victoria, there were over 33,000 car thefts in 2024, which the ABS says is a 41% increase. And it's actually been enough to actually push Australia's national average up by 8% just from Victoria's rise, and a much smaller 6% increase in New South Wales alone. As for every other state and territory, they've actually experienced a decline.
Yeah, and look, however, I should say, as much as Queensland has seen its numbers drop a bit, this remains a big issue here as well. It was certainly central to heated political debates, and it's a key part of the now LNP government's plan to kind of crack down on youth crime at the latest election. But across the country last year, we know that there was still more than 65,000 people who reported having their cars stolen, many of them during brazen daylight hours, including weapons and threats.
There's been an alarming rise in hospitals recording common infections that have become resistant to antibiotics across the globe. According to the latest World Health Organization surveillance report, which assessed data from over 100 countries and about 23 million bacterial infections, 1 in 6 are now resistant to the treatment. It also found over 40% of antibiotics had lost their ability to fight a number of illnesses, including various STIs, urinary tract infections, and other common blood and gut illnesses between 2018 and 2023.
Yeah, and the WHO has actually labelled these findings deeply concerning and potentially life-threatening, as it basically leaves doctors and other medicos without many treatment options. And they've said that the biggest concern is obviously for countries with weaker healthcare systems than Australia, but we and other Western countries are absolutely experiencing this trend as well. According to the WHO, there's over 7 million people a year that actually die from these kinds of infections, and well over half of them are due to drug resistance.
Yeah, and the biggest concern from the report was related to a bacteria linked to illnesses like organ failure, sepsis and death, showing a 40 to 55% resistance rate in some places and over 70% in the countries with the poorest healthcare systems. Basically, the worry globally is that infections are becoming resistant to antibiotics at a faster rate than we're able to develop new ones. Medical professionals are now pretty much calling for urgent investment, research and action to combat it, as well as to inform people about the need to prevent infections to begin with through things like good hygiene practices and vaccinations.
And just when you thought AI and crims couldn't get any more brazen, Chris, coming for our jobs, our data, our cash, well, now an Australian council has been the latest to fall victim. Noosa Council on the Sunshine Coast says it had almost $2 million stolen by an international crime gang who used AI to defraud them late last year, with the incident now being investigated by the AFP and cybercrime experts.
Yeah, they say this was a sophisticated, strategic and targeted hit that didn't steal any data of ratepayers, just their money. In fact, $1.9 million worth. However, they've managed to recoup at least $400,000, which isn't too bad so far, if I do say so myself. Now, the crims used basically the same tech that's used to make deepfakes, and the council hasn't told us exactly how they've done it, obviously not wanting to give any other crims any other ideas.
Yeah, this is wild, I think. Brazen really is the word. They're really going for the jugular with this. And honestly, I don't like their chances of actually catching these crims. I remember chatting to a cybercrime expert once who said less than 1% of cybercrimes are solved and way less if there's anything to do with it being international. So good luck to the Noosa Council with this one.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought the biggest story to come out of Noosa was that it was Carl Stefanovic's and Michael Clark's favourite holiday spot.
Oh.
But guess what? We have a new story now to talk about Noosa. That is it for our headlines for today. Coming up next is my deep dive into Hollywood's next big star. She's not real, but she's got A-listers fired right up. Have a listen to that up next. If you took a scroll of your socials at the moment, there's a pretty good chance you'd see videos of Stephen Hawking landing flips in a skate comp.
Here he goes off the drop speed. He's lining up for something off big. The coping. Oh, he sends it. Backflip in the chair. Full rotation. Stick it. Perfect landing.
The late Queen Elizabeth on a Ring camera knocking on a stranger's door.
Good afternoon. Terribly sorry to trouble you. Do you mind if I use your toilet? I do rather need a poo. I've got a turtle head poking out, as they say. Wouldn't be long, promise.
And YouTuber turned professional boxer Jake Paul behaving rather out of character.
Okay, look at these nails, babe. I'm literally obsessed. They're baby pink with little sparkly tips and rhinestones all over. Like, tell me that's not the cutest thing ever.
This is just some of the latest AI slop our feeds are being graced with, a fortnight after the company behind ChatGPT dropped its new video generator Sora 2. It can turn a few lines of text into footage and audio, more accurate and realistic than ever before, which experts are labeling a watershed moment for AI. Now, while millions of users have already downloaded Sora and their creations are flooding socials at the moment, this type of AI is also knocking on Hollywood's door.
Hi, I'm Tilly. I'm 23 years old, 45 kilograms, dark eyes, brunette hair, and I'll do anything you want me to do.
Meet Tilly Norwood. She's AI generated, got a British accent like you heard, kind of looks like a young Brooke Shields or present-day Hailey Steinfeld, and she's got that textbook girl next door who can double as an action star look. According to its creators, Tilly's the next Scarlett Johansson and is apparently in talks with several agents who are looking to sign, which stars like Emily Blunt and Amy Poehler aren't too keen on.
Good Lord, we're screwed. Come on, agencies, please stop.
And to that little AI robot watching TV right now who wants to be on this stage someday, I say to you, you'll never be able to write a joke, you stupid robot.
Now, while this is all unfolding overseas, what does it mean for the industry more broadly? How are we seeing things like Tilly happening here in Australia? And how exactly can we better manage the infiltration of AI in a once human-dominated industry? Jacqui Duncan is an actor and voice actor who is also the New South Wales Equity Vice President of the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, Australia's union for creatives. And she joins me now. Jacqui, welcome to the briefing. Why is Tilly Norwood causing a stir?
Well, if Tilly Norwood was acting in film, firstly, I don't know how I as an actor am supposed to act opposite Tilly Norwood. So then you need other actors to fill out the rest of the scene. So you have no actors who are employed. You have no people filming. You have no lighting, no best boys, gaffers. You lose the whole set. You lose hundreds of jobs. I think people are shocked. It's one of the first big in-your-face AI presences to arise. We all know that it's coming after a lot of jobs, but we didn't necessarily think it was going to replace humans, and we didn't think it was going to affect the creative arts.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, looking at her, and I mentioned this in my intro, she does look like a lot of actresses that we've seen before. I mean, springing to my mind immediately was a young Brooke Shields, and then I also compared her to a present-day Hailey Steinfeld. Is that part of the reason as to why there is such a strong reaction to her at the moment?
I think it could be, especially when you say a young Brooke Shields, because her story is she was very heavily taken advantage of because she had this doe-eyed, innocent look. So someone has created this actress to look very innocent and non-threatening, but then she's threatening a whole industry of performers.
Now, a point that's been brought up when people in the industry are discussing this is that it feels very similar to animation. It feels very similar to CGI. These aren't necessarily things that killed or are killing the industry, but they opened up all these alternative avenues. Do you see something like Tilly Norwood as opening up alternative avenues?
I think presently we don't know whether this is more of a publicity stunt or whether this is an actual threat. So we have a ways to go before we know if Tilly Norwood is actually going to perform in any kind of role. I'm a voice actor, so I've done a lot of animation, and animation has developed over the years from literal hand drawings to digital and 3D and whatnot. So that media has always been advancing, but there's still humans behind the creativity side of it. AI, on the other hand, is something that is generated from data that is inputted into their LLM, their large language model. The only way these AI systems have that data at present is because they've taken it and inputted it into the system. So I did a little bit of research on this. Particle 6 is the company that has created Tilly Norwood. There is zero transparency as to how the data was inputted into her its LLM. LLM.
Which is something we were talking about before we hit record, the pronouns. What pronouns do you use for this thing that's not human?
Right, because Tilly's ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So Tilly is not a human.
No.
But there's humans' data that has been stolen and input to train Tilly to do whatever impersonation of a human that Tilly does.
How important do you think it is, though, to audiences that a performer is quote-unquote real? Are we seeing viewers rejecting AI-created content? Because, again, in the introduction to this episode, I referenced Sora 2, which is the new OpenAI model that everyone's been clinging to and creating all these user-generated videos that are flooding our feeds at the moment, and people don't seem to care all that much that it's AI-generated. They're flagging, okay, bit weird, but it's still forming part of their day-to-day. They're still sharing it to their socials. They're still talking about it with their friends. What's audience appetite like at the moment?
Well, I think you've got two different categories there, because social media has a whole lot. You can get into a black hole of scrolling on your phone on social media, and sometimes the videos are educational, sometimes it's just plain slop. And that is what AI is kind of, a lot of the AI generated videos are really weird videos that people are just like, I'm going to watch this rather than wash my dishes.
Correct.
When you go and watch a film or a TV show, you're going to watch actors perform but tell a story. And I think AI maybe can fit into that slop side where you just want to shut your mind off and do that. But when you want to watch entertainment, you want to see humans emoting.
Is that a little bit at odds, though, with how the industry is moving? Because we do know that the Oscars have opened up this idea where a film made with the help of AI can be nominated for, best film. How does your thinking and the MEAA's thinking compete with that thinking from arguably industry leaders here?
I think the reason why the Academy has done that is because AI has already been used in films that have been nominated in the past. So AI has actually been around for a long time, and there's been smaller elements that have been implemented. The Brutalist was one, for example. So they can't now go, no films with any AI, but maybe they need to draw the line as to what level of AI could AI be used in, maybe the assistance of some of the CGI.
Well, I am curious to know, what are some of the tools at the Australian government's disposal specifically that you guys are calling on for them to start enacting and using and trying to, create a better and more regulated space here?
We're asking for the important words, which is transparency and legislation. So I know some of the big tech bros have gone on and said that copyright is enough and that's all you need. Or maybe, let's get rid of copyright. We don't need that. Most of the AI, especially the AI that's been trained in Australia, is trained with stolen data from humans. And so when big tech say copyright's okay, copyright hasn't protected those humans. So we need either copyright to be stronger, we need copyright to protect the sound of my voice, the way I look. So we need people to step up and actually go, okay, no, this legislation isn't working. We need this to be stronger. And I should be able to go online and look up Tilly Norwood and find out what data has been used to train her. Because no doubt there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of actresses who have been input into the LLM to train her, and that is theft from every single one of those.
Now, while we do have industry leaders calling this out, I mean, we had the head of News Corp last week speak about how AI is reshaping this whole industry in a really bad way. But we did also hear from the Productivity Commission not too long ago, and they had an AI report on the creative industry, and they pretty much said that the horse has bolted, that this is no longer an us versus them situation. This is pretty much we have to live side by side with AI. How do you feel about that position? And is that really the way forward?
I don't think they're wrong in terms of the fact that the horse is already running down the field. But I think we have a chance of capturing that horse. We can jump on the back of it and continue riding with it. We don't have to let it get away from us and do it for us and replace humans. Otherwise, the future is looking very dystopian. But the Productivity Commission report didn't really go and consult with creative industries. They consulted with a lot of tech industries and whatnot and really presented that point of view. And when you come down to it, productivity will increase if you get computers to do it for you. But when humans can do it more authentically, you don't need computers to do it. And I think we as humans deserve to be respected, that we should be advertised to by real people. We should be watching things when we want to interact and relate and enjoy the emotion of an actor who is an incredible performer, who can emote, who's in a scene. I've been there, and the feeling is amazing when you're crying with someone else. And the human watching that, I think, will enjoy the visceral experience by seeing that authentic emotion.
Before we let you go, the intersections of AI and the way that it's seeping into every industry is something that's on a lot of people's radars at the moment. In what ways is it seeping into the Australian industry that the MEAA has clocked and is actively kind of working on trying to deal with?
I, as a voice actor, know of a couple of different voice performers who have had their voice replicated without their consent. They were told they were no longer required and therefore no longer getting paid, and then heard a version of their voice replicated in two separate projects. So that's one way. There have been a couple of TV commercials that I've seen which have AI actors, and you'll know when you see them because when they smile, it's not a normal smile. It's like, it's weird. So, you know, a lot of actors rely on commercial work to pay the bills in between the TV series or the other work. So when you take away commercial work, you've got a lot of people who can't afford to pay their rent.
Well, Jacqui, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you for having me.
That was Jacqui Duncan from the MEAA speaking with me there. And that is it for this episode of The Briefing. If you enjoyed it or learned something new, why not flick it over to a mate? And while you're there, leave us a rate and a review. I'm Spyrou. I'll catch you next time.